Yes, hello everyone. How's it going? What's the crack? My name is Michael and this is the Mick podcast, episode number 8. And today we're doing the top 10 sports stadiums, arenas, anywhere in the world. I hope everyone's keeping well. I hope everyone's having a good day wherever you're listening or watching from, and I thank you for doing so. So, as always, I'll just run through a couple of things real quick and then we'll get into the countdown, which I think is going to be a really good one today. I had a lot of interaction, a lot of feedback, which is a massive help when it comes to making these episodes, because when we can bounce back and forth, have a bit of a chat, then it makes it so much easier for everyone involved. So yeah, that was the first thing that I wanted to say when starting off, was just thank you so much to everybody for all the support on the last episode. It was the first time I'd uploaded to YouTube with the podcast, and I got a great response from it. A lot of people said they prefer to watch rather than listen, and I'm glad that I can now provide that platform for people to do that and grow the podcast a wee bit more. With nearly 70 views on there the last time I checked, which is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Granted, I might be about 20 of them being vain, watching myself back, picking flaws and doing whatever else, and as you can see, I've somewhat attempted the smallest of backgrounds here with an American football that I bought today. Not for that reason, obviously. I'm going to use it properly at some point, but I thought I'd ever so slightly try and spice the place up rather than just a quilt in the background. But yeah, and the podcast is available now on a whole load of different channels: Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. So wherever you like to listen to your podcast, you can now listen to the McLav podcast there as well. I have a new Instagram page for the podcast. For those people that are over on Instagram, I would really appreciate if you could give it a follow. It's just the McLav podcast. That's all it is. And yeah, it saves me like clogging up my own feed with all podcast stuff, especially when there are people that don't want to see it or listen to it or whatever else and just would prefer not to see it. So I've made a page, and I'll probably use it more as like a blog type page for when I'm here in university as well. Just putting up different things and whatever, sort of like this podcast, just having a bit of a chat, a bit of a ramble, just over on Instagram. So the Mick Lav podcast on Instagram as well. I would really appreciate if you could follow. And one last request for following people, just returning the favour, as I gave a shout out on Facebook to earlier in the week. Richie McGee is a massive supporter of this podcast. He's always listening, always interacting. So thank you, Richie. Best of luck with your new podcast. Yes, folks, keep you uppies with Richie McGee. Covers all local sports in and around the Lurgan area, and of course then looks up in the Premier League and the higher leagues as well. You can find it on Podbean. If you go to my Facebook, I'm tagged in a couple of things. You'll find Richie over there and you'll find his stuff. I gave the first couple of episodes a listen and I watched the other day, and they were great, really, really interesting, especially whenever I'm away from home. I don't really know what's going on with the likes of Sunnyside and all the other teams back home, so it's great to be kept in the loop somehow. So yeah, follow the podcast page, follow Richie, and yeah, that's all my pleading and begging done. We'll get into the list now. So put it out. I asked, what's your favourite sports arena? I specifically didn't say stadiums because some people might watch different sports or whatever else. And as I said, the feedback was huge on the Instagram page. Facebook got tons of comments, and even on Snapchat and whatever else as well, just different people messaging us. So I'll run through my list, the list that I wrote myself, that I think are 10 of the greatest stadiums on the planet, or arenas. And then I'll go into all the comments and stuff that people sent in, and then we'll run through. Of course, there was several, shall we say, people taking the piss, but it doesn't bother me. Like, it's good. Half of the suggestions actually are some of the greatest places I've ever played football or went for a kick about anyway. So we'll start off on this list that I have in my little book of podcast things here beside me, and as I say a little bit about them, why I think they should be on the list, and then move over to what you lovely folks had to say. So at number 10, it's not really in any particular order, sort of the last couple towards like 5 through 1, maybe 3 through 1, I think are in an order and for reasons. But up until this point, they're just stadiums that I like. So at number 10, we have Estadio Azteca, or the Aztec Stadium in Mexico City, where the Mexican national team play and where the NFL hosts a game, or have tried to host a game once a season now for the past couple of years. They couldn't a few years ago because there was fires or something, or the state of the pitch. And this year they couldn't because I'm not sure if anybody's heard, but there's a bit of a virus going about in Mexico, sort of all over the place. So they couldn't go to Mexico this year either. But yeah, it's a massive stadium. It's like well over a mile above sea level, so the altitude there is crazy. Really difficult to play in. Really takes like good, proper, tough athletes to go and perform there. And if you look at it, if you see pictures of it, it's world class. It really, really looks amazing. Number 9, we'll go on down under to the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And this is just like, it's just a massive circle oval type stadium, but it is huge. It obviously hosts cricket, the cricket ground, and it hosts the Australian Football League Aussie Rules. It hosts, I think it hosts their final, like their sort of Super Bowl type, and whoever the Melbourne team are as well, they're included. The only really reason I found out about this was my younger brother and I, Connor, playing the cricket game on the PlayStation or Xbox, and this is where all the games were held. And on the graphics, it looked amazing. So when you go and look at it in real life, or I say real life, if you go and look at it then, pictures of it, world class. Speaking of world class, sort of fresh new stadium, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Now, I have been to it. I've been outside it. I haven't been inside it. I've been to the superstore, I've been to the shop where, again, they have an NFL section. And in case anyone had a little bit of confusion or anything about it, I'm a massive NFL fan. Just in case I've never mentioned that, I doubt you've ever heard me say it. Yeah, the outside of it's amazing. you're up there in North London, and it's just like, it sticks out like a sore thumb because obviously there's nothing like it around it. But when you get up close, it is massive, the detail. And then when you watch it on TV, inside, obviously they've got one big side of it that holds 17,000 fans seated on just one big terrace alone. Are really like a spectacle. And of course they have the change in pitch from football to American football back and forth, which means they can host games here regularly, which is amazing. Obviously, as a fan of the sport, that we have that ability here to just flick a switch and we've got our own professional size standard field over here. Definitely worth going to check out if you can, if you're ever in the London area, even just to walk around it, because it is amazing. Number 7 on the list, then another new stadium. This one's actually in America. It's in Los Angeles. It's called SoFi Stadium. It's just out. It's like $1 billion stadium. The owner of Arsenal, Stan Kroenke, or however you pronounce that name, is responsible for building this. So if anybody wonders why Arsenal struggle in the transfer window or why they have no money, get on Google, search SoFi Stadium Los Angeles, and you'll see that Arsenal's entire transfer budget is spent and is just sitting over there. And it, for me personally, is worth every single penny because, 1, hate Arsenal, and 2, the stadium looks amazing. So it's sort of a win-win situation. Sorry, not sorry, Arsenal fans, those of you that are listening. Number 6 on the list, Celtic Park. Not the most majestic stadium to look at, but the atmosphere, unrivaled. On big days there, Champions League nights, Old Firm days playing against Rangers, the atmosphere that they can generate, and especially now they've got that safe standing north curve, as they call it, phenomenal. You know, the place is rocking from minute 1 to minute 90, and if you ever see the videos of it on YouTube, especially on European nights are just outer worldly. So it definitely deserves a mention in the top 10 based on its ability to create atmosphere alone. Number five, the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. It's in Arlington, Texas, and it is massive. Now, I think you're starting to see a bit of a theme in why some of these are in the top 10, and it's basically just because of their size. think it seats over 100,000, maybe just shy of 100,000. But if you look at this place, the screens they have are like the size of buildings. Like massive. I mean, like difficult to describe how big they are. If you're on the lower levels of this pitch and you want to see like a highlight, I mean, like you're breaking your neck to look like vertical up at these things, and it's just amazing to look at. We've seen videos of McGregor and stuff in it, not fighting or anything, just they're messing around doing a promo or something. Huge, absolutely massive. One of the biggest structures in the world at one point. Before it's obviously been overtaken since that, but definitely worth a mention on any stadium list anywhere. Especially when the sun's starting to set and it comes through one of the end zone windows and it just like lights the place up. 4. Now we're into the top 5. As I said, whenever I started to rank these sort of seriously from here on, the ones previously have deserved a mention, but more so than the honourable mentions that I'll do after. Deserve to be in the top 10, but these top 5 I think are ranked in order of my preference. Of course you can debate that however you please. Number 4 is Madison Square Garden, simply because it's one of probably the most historic arena anywhere in the world. It hosts everything: concerts, hockey, ice hockey, boxing events, and the return of John Cena at the 2008 Royal Rumble. What more could you possibly want for a venue? It's just it's like, it's big but it's small. It's in New York. Everything's bigger and better in New York, but this is like there's a bit of an intimate feel to it because of how it is, the events that have happened there in the past. Deserves to be on any list, and probably if it wasn't for my bias in some areas, deserves to be much higher. Pardon me. So yeah, now we're into the top 3. For those people that aren't actually watching the YouTube video and are just listening to me, I apologise. I keep having to take the odd sip of water because I'm talking that much nonsense. My mouth ends up going dry. Right, top 3. And these are personal, for no reason other than the teams that I support and the country that I'm from. Number 3 is Old Trafford, Manchester United, home stadium, the Theatre of Dreams, whatever you want to call it, Sir Alex Ferguson's home. And as of recently, a playground for other teams that want to come and get 3 points. Which is, like I said, I wasn't going to talk about VAR in the last episode, and I did for a bit. I'm not talking about that United result because it made me cross at the weekend. Yes, it was softened by the Liverpool result. Everybody was happy about that. The United result just isn't worth talking about. But yeah, 76,000 I think Old Trafford holds. I've been there multiple times. Amazing arena. Just there's a special feel as a United fan when you go there, because when you grow up watching this place on TV and you see it, and your heroes essentially, the people that you grew up watching play football, the Rooneys, Ronaldos, Giggs, Scholes, Van der Sar, all the lads basically, and you go and then you see this place with your own 2 eyes. It is it's something else. And then you get to do the tour, you get into the changing rooms, out the tunnel. The walk out of the tunnel in Old Trafford is breathtaking. It just feels special. You know, there's a lot of history about that place, and that it's the home to the most successful team in English football history. So I'll just leave that there and let people stew over that one. I love being a wind-up. Number 2, CenturyLink Field. This is where the Seattle Seahawks play in the NFL. This is an amazing arena. For those watching the YouTube video, hopefully I've been able to be a bit of a dab hand at the editing and have been able to include pictures along the way, so you'll be able to see, if not, go and Google it, just how amazing this arena is. It looks almost as if one end of it's cut out, and they call that the Hawk's Nest, and you can see the entire city of Seattle in the background. At one point was the loudest arena in the world, I think, before another stadium overtook it. Louder than a jet engine is what it was described as, and it was just like they've had registered earthquakes in the vicinity of it when the Seahawks make a big play because of how much the ground shakes or how much noise they can generate, and it just looks cool. You have buildings in the background that they often they leave the office lights on in a certain way to spell out messages, and it just as a fan of that team, watching them play at home is just second to none. It's like, obviously I've never been there, but it's like Old Trafford when you get that special feeling. You know something, there's history about that place. You know there's been big events or there's a good team that plays there. You know, but the number one on the list, which we'll get to now, is the most special of them all. I put out asking for suggestions, as I said, and I think I got this back 5 or 6 times, and it was always going to be number one on my list. For those that listened to my episode about theme songs, you know that the Sunday game was number one, and I was ready to backflip in my room and punch someone in the face as to how hyped up I was about that theme song. Well, of course, number one on the list is Croke Park, and I talk about special, I talk about feeling something, I talk about wanting to be there. Croke Park blows the rest of the competition out of the water by miles. 82,000, I think it holds. Standing, if you've ever been to Croke Park, if you've ever stood on Hill 16 and witnessed the atmosphere around you. Now, granted, I was very young when that happened, but I remember it so clearly. That's how big, that's how memorable of an experience it is. I've sat all over the stadium, top, bottom, Cusack, Hogan, Canal End. I've sat everywhere, but the hill was really something special. I've been to an All-Ireland final, I've been to an Ulster final in Croke Park, I've been to an All-Ireland semi-final, the one where Down beat Kildare with the last kick. Well, Kildare failed to score a goal on the last kick of the ball, giving Down the win. But you have to know. You have to. It's sort of like when someone tells you a joke and it's like, oh, you had to be there a moment because the joke isn't funny. If I'm telling you Croke Park is special and you're not believing me, it's because you have to go there. You have to witness it one day for yourself. And just there's something about being Irish and being in Croke Park that just marries together, and you're like, I am in the centre of everything that's important to this country right now. And yeah, well, I feel like I'm getting really deep into it here, and I am, because it's such a special place. There's so many historic events, of course, and obviously they used it for the football and the rugby and all for ages before they were shipped over to the Aviva. But now that it's back to being solely a GAA venue, it's go to a game. I watched my old school St Ronan's win the All-Ireland Hogan Cup in Croke Park. I watched some of my friends play on that pitch, and I cried my eyes out after it. There is a video, if anyone wants to see it, message me, I'll find it, I'll send it to you. I cried like a wee girl in Croke Park when St Ronan's won the Hogan, because the school meant so much to me. The moment, the venue, unbelievable. I could go on for hours. I could do a full podcast talking about Croke Park, but I feel like for your sake and mine, I'll move on to some honourable mentions, or like the suggestions that everybody sent in, because I just need to let that Croke Park thought stew on its own. It's the best arena in the entire world. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there. I got quite deep into it. Apologies. So I'll move now to the Instagram. Of course, like as I said earlier, brand new Instagram page, the Mick Podcast. That's where all these suggestions were sent to. And I'll read through, and I'll read out every one that was sent to me, even though there was a couple of jokers in there. The first reply I got was Croke Park. I got Croke Park I got Croke Park 3 times in this section of replies, and if you heard, I needn't say more. Roisin Toman says the Whites pitch. Yeah, Distillery Hill. the Peters, up the Whites. If you know my family, if you know how much that club means to them, and the people, like half the people of North Lurgan, those from Clonard not included. Yeah, this place is like a second home. Doubt coming in with Knockgrammar Park. I actually got Knockgrammar several times, and I agree. For those not familiar, that's where Sunnyside plays. That's where we lifted our first and only ever league trophy as a team. Grew up playing football there my entire life. Bit of work needs done on the pitch now and then. Now, granted, I haven't been there in a long time, so I hope not to get shouted at for that. But a lot of work going in done around the club. An amazing place. Aisling, she says, well, she said Croke Park as well, but hers was for an entirely different reason, and one that I'm not even remotely surprised by. My favourite arena is Croke Park because 1D played there, and also the Odyssey Arena. So yeah, sports arenas, sports podcasts, and Aisling says Croke Park and the Odyssey because One Direction have been there. Good on you. Madison Square Gardens come back up again. The Mecca of basketball, says Chris McKevitt. Josh Turod says the Cage. I actually got that a couple times as well. I replied to Josh and I asked him, was it the Kawilki Mugga or was it the Cage in school? And he says, has to be the school. Big Kevin, or no, Big Joe shouting, go on, Big Kevin. Obviously that's a very niche reference, a very limited joke, but the people that know, the people that get it, and it's funny for what it is. James Beatty, thanks for getting in touch. He says Anfield, of course. Didn't want to include it, had to do it. Peter Lappin, that's for you as well. I know you said Anfield. Told you I was going to ignore the comment. Can't do it. Thanks for getting involved, but you could have come up with a much better suggestion. That goes to you as well, James. So just keep that in mind. Cormac Moore says Grattan Park. Those familiar with the geography of Lurgan will know that's just across from the Peters. Obviously Lurgan Celtic used to play there, and I used to live directly behind Grattan Park, and on multiple occasions the ball was in our backyard or my bedroom window was smashed because of big hoofed balls that just came over the back fence. So Grattan Park, unfortunately no longer a pitch, as everybody knows, was turned into the temporary chapel and is now a closed car park because people couldn't behave themselves. Come on, Lurgan. Yeah, so that's everybody on Instagram. I got a couple on Twitter as well. Right, so Matt Cullen got in touch. Thanks, Matt. He also said Madison Square Garden, and he says he's been there for the Knicks and the Rangers and a Kings of Leon concert, and it's just a different historic sort of feel to it. And then he came back with a list after, some of which I'd actually never heard of, so I had to Google myself. Estadio de Luz, Palace of Auburn Hills, the United Center, the Giants Stadium. Now Matt's a New York Jets fan, so like that nearly pained him, nearly killed him to say that. Dodger Stadium, Celtic Park, and the Old Wembley. All great suggestions there, especially the likes of the Giants Stadium and the Old Wembley, ones that are no longer around. Danny O'Brien, who I done the Limerick City radio show with, he said it's Semple Stadium. It's where his club won their first county senior title, and it holds the sort of that memory there for him. And I agree. It's actually Semple Stadium's in Tipperary. This was not done on purpose, by the way, the fact that I'm wearing a Tip jersey. So thanks, Danny, for your involvement. And we went on, we spoke a bit after, and he said it was quite the session. Went on after that championship victory in Semple Stadium. So fond memories, despite probably not being able to remember much of it. So we'll move on to Facebook, and this is where loads came in, so I know we're getting on a little bit for time, but I'll race through these quickly without obviously skipping anybody out. Another suggestion for Not Grammar, my mum, thanks mum for getting in touch. She said Defo, Croke Park, Old Trafford and Wembley. The walk up to Wembley is amazing. Agreed. Wembley Way, if you've ever done it, is fantastic. You'll know, just coming out of the tube station down the steps and the big long walk up to the stadium is something else. Paddy McCavigan, Quilky Mugga, simply breathtaking. Agreed, especially a game of red ass there in the summer. My uncle Marty Lavery says Croke Park, no, number one without doubt. Others of note on a personal level: Stamford Bridge, New Camp, Murrayfield, Ravenhill, Celtic Park, and he always loved the game at Casement Park, which is unfortunately, as he says, now just being left to rot in Belfast. So Casement was a great venue. All those other ones, I was quite surprised actually by Murrayfield. Um, and I asked him why, and he said a piper standing on top of the stadium on game day for the flower of Scotland. That gave me goosebumps thinking about it. So I'd the idea of that whole stadium watching this one bagpiper on, it sounds good. I'm maybe not doing it enough justice. It sounds great. Greg Loughran, Coach Greg Loughran from the Craigavon Cowboys. Great to hear from you, Greg. Hope all's well. Give 2 American football suggestions. Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, just another level. And MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, unbelievable. Agreed about both. Gillette Stadium has that bridge in it. There's like a section of the stands cut out, just left empty, and there's a bridge from one side to the other. It looks fantastic. Darren Moore Stokesy says Parkhead has to be number one. Agreed. Well, it's not my number one on but it is in the top 10 list. Definitely a great arena. Christopher Toman, number one Croker, hands down. 83k attendance, nothing beats that at all. Agreed, and as well, it was my number one. For me, a bit of left field one, but he's been to two, for me, basketball, sorry. The Oracle in San Francisco, or Oakland, sorry. The atmosphere in there was electric, and the players like Steph Curry, KD, and Klay Thompson, when they make big plays, was awesome. Agreed. That is now closed down. They don't play there anymore, but that arena was fantastic for the Warriors, and for quite some time they seemed practically unbeatable there. And Apple Holland's like Clonus, definitely in that. We had some great family days out in Clonus. On one which occasion we got stuck in muddy fields. Because there was hardly any parking. You used to pay €5 and some farmer would let you park up on the hills of his field. Owen Mulholland, this was one of the more piss-tacky ones got. Definitely the 1st of May Stadium in Pyongyang. If anyone needs help with their geography, that's North Korea. Under the control of a severe dictatorship, so I don't think many of us will ever experience the 1st of May Stadium, but decent to look at. My uncle Sean Coleman, got to be Madison Square Garden in terms of events on the inside, definitely. Louise says Croke Park, and many good Clonus. Negro got involved, says the almighty Camp Nou. Conor McKay, the Cage at lunchtime, definitely. The Cage at lunchtime, for those that just aren't familiar, there's no point trying to explain it to you because it was a whole new spectacle to itself, and it was just superb. The crack we had at school, lads, was just, you could still talk about now. Aidan McConville, Oren McGee, the 2 managers parading up and down the sideline. Unreal. My dad says Croke Park would be hard to beat. Old Trafford, Celtic on a European night, and the London Stadium, which is where West Ham now play. Seen the World Athletics Championships there a few years back, and it's a pretty iconic spot. And he also gives a mention to Casement. Gavi saying Knockgrammar. I can't stress enough, lads, how much Knockgrammar means to so many people. If you know, you know. And then my uncle Marty got back in touch for one final comment. Says I've had a rethink. The best stadium I was ever in was in a bar in Keansburg, New Jersey, called The Stadium. That place had a cracking atmosphere and always came out of it buzzing. So if I ask for the best stadium and the name of a bar is a stadium, well then of course that's going to be the answer. Listen, I know I rambled there for quite some bit. I had to race through some of them, and we're just approaching here the half-an-hour mark, which is slightly longer than these episodes usually go on for. But if you've stuck around, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's purely down to everybody getting involved, and I'm not complaining one bit because it's what I'm asking for. I'm looking people to get involved. I'm looking these conversations to happen. I know I might have got a bit carried away with the whole Croke Park thing, but guilty. So I think moving forward, I'm going to try to get another guest in, maybe for the next episode, or perhaps the episode following that. Just to change it up a wee bit, because I can be quite boring at times and I can ramble. So I thought it would be great if we could bounce conversation back and forth off someone else. So yeah, follow, get involved. The socials are now Michael98 on Twitter and the McLav podcast on Instagram. And hopefully get a bit of life, bit of movement into the Instagram page. And who knows, if I come into millions of cash, I'll maybe do a giveaway at some point. And my mum will kill me for saying that because I don't actually have any money. Right. That's it, folks. Thank you all so much for listening, getting involved, and I'll see you all in the next episode of the Mick Love podcast.